Okay, let's jump right in. When you think about how complex ideas get turned into articles or, well, even audio, like this deep dive,
Yeah.
you probably picture, maybe, that classic image, right? A
Mhm.
solitary writer, or maybe someone in a studio, just crafting every single word from scratch.
Right. Hours and hours alone with the keyboard.
Exactly. It
Yeah.
feels very isolated, a long, intense effort. But what if that whole picture is, well, changing fast?
You mean becoming outdated?
Yeah. What if creating really rich, detailed stuff could be way faster now, maybe even deeper, and less like running a solo marathon and more like,
Ah,
well, like a team effort?
even if one of the team members isn't human.
Precisely.
Well, that shift is exactly what we're digging into today. We're looking at a specific piece by William L. Weaver.
Okay.
It's called The AI Copilot, and it's from his newsletter, Independent Variables. He basically lays out his whole workflow.
His personal workflow.
Yeah, how he creates both the written articles and the audio overviews for his publication. It's a real look behind the scenes.
And he's pretty upfront about the impact this AI integration has had, isn't he?
Oh, absolutely. He talks about a massive transformation just over the last year or so.
Right.
What used to take him weeks, for just one piece, idea to article to audio,
Yeah.
now it's a process that lets him achieve, and this is his quote, greater depth, breadth, and frequency.
So, like you said, not just faster, though, that's obviously part of it.
No, it's more fundamental. It's about changing how ideas get developed, how they get refined, how they get shared across different formats, too.
And one thing that makes this source really useful, and something we should definitely highlight for you listening, is that he doesn't just give a shopping list of tools or steps. He uses a specific framework.
Exactly. He uses systems thinking. That's kind of the lens he applies to his whole content creation process.
Okay, systems thinking. So how does that work here?
Well, he sees it as this dynamic system, right? With
Yeah.
all these interconnected parts, you've got the inputs, everything feeding the system.
Yeah.
Then there's the process itself, which he specifically calls heavily AI augmented.
Ah, the AI part.
And then finally, the outputs, the articles, the images, the audio, the stuff you actually see and hear.
So thinking about it that way. Inputs, process, outputs. It gives you a structure.
A really powerful structure, yeah, for understanding how all these bits work together and why the result is so different from, that old solitary writer model.
Okay, so our mission for this deep dive then is to unpack the specific workflow he describes. We want to sort of demystify the tools and the process for you.
Right. We'll look at how he uses these large language models, LLMs. Everyone hears about them.
Yeah, all the time.
And some other, maybe more specialized AI assistants, too.
And we'll show how he sees these tools acting as, what did he call them? Powerful co-pilots.
That's the term, co-pilots, helping enhance an individual's ability to communicate complex stuff really quickly.
And this seems crucial while keeping their own authentic voice, their perspective.
Yes, that's a key point he makes. And we'll keep coming back to that systems thinking idea throughout. Explaining the tech part simply, of course.
So if you've been curious about how AI is really starting to change creative work, maybe beyond just simple chatbots.
Or if you just want to understand what a practical day-to-day AI workflow looks like for someone creating content,
then yeah, you're definitely in the right place for this deep dive.
we're going to get into the weeds of the source material, pull out the important bits, the insights, maybe even some surprising details about how this system works.
Okay, let's do it. Let's unpack this system. Starting, like you said, with the inputs. Where does it all begin?
Right. Every system starts with inputs. And the source makes it really clear. The inputs here aren't just tech, and they aren't just human.
It's a mix.
It's a blend, yeah. A synergy, you might say. But, and this is important, the human element is really providing that essential foundation, the direction.
Okay, so let's start there. The human side. He calls it the core intellectual seed.
Yeah, and that's vital. Because he emphasizes the AI isn't just, dreaming up the initial ideas. That's not where it starts.
It's not spontaneous generation by the machine.
No, not at all. The starting point is always the author's own thinking. It kicks off with what he calls a spark of an idea.
A spark. Like what?
It could be anything, really. A concept he's mulling over, an observation from his work he mentions decades in STEM and education.
Right.
Or maybe a question he's wrestling with, or a theme related to his interests, like systems thinking or complexity. It comes from human curiosity, human experience.
And that spark isn't just random. It's built on something deeper. The source mentions his decades of experience in foundational models.
Exactly. He brings, 30-plus years in STEM research and education? That's a huge base.
Yeah, massive.
But it's more than just general experience. He also uses specific conceptual frameworks, models that he actually developed over his career.
Ah, so this is where his specific expertise comes in.
I think so. The source mentions things like his standard systems model, and within that, key ideas like the EMI Trinity and a three-tier hierarchy of complexity.
EMI Trinity, three-tier hierarchy. Okay, those sound specific.
They do. They aren't just generic concepts you'd find anywhere. They seem to be his specific developed ways of analyzing complex systems, his intellectual tools.
And the implication in the source is that this deep experience plus these unique models,
Yeah.
that's the core intellectual capital, right? The AI doesn't have that.
Precisely. The AI has learned patterns from, almost everything ever written, but it doesn't have his lived experience or his unique frameworks like, say, the EMI Trinity.
Which seems like maybe a lens for looking at systems through specific dimensions. Energy, matter, information maybe.
Well,
Just guessing based on the letters.
could be. The source mentions he uses it in prompts, so it's clearly an active part of how he directs the AI. But yeah, the human provides that unique intellectual DNA.
And even before he starts prompting the AI, he knows where he's going with the piece. The source talks about having a narrative arc and core message planned out.
Right. He knows the story he wants to tell, the main points he needs to make, the key takeaways for the audience. The human sets the destination, the purpose.
So the AI isn't deciding what to write about, fundamentally.
No. The human defines the why and the what, and then remember those notes to self writers often make?
Yeah, like reminders, questions.
Well, the source says those now get transformed. They become explicit, detailed prompts for AI. Clear instructions, telling the AI what to focus on, what to explore.
Okay, so human input, the idea spark, the deep experience, the unique frameworks, the overall narrative, and the specific instructions. That's a lot.
It's indispensable. Now, let's look at the other side, the AI toolset.
The tech inputs.
Fundamentally, as the source details, it relies on large language models,
That.
LLMs,
Right.
and it gives a nice, simple definition. Sophisticated AI programs train on vast quantities of text and code.
Ah,
Basically, imagine feeding an AI a giant digital library.
everything ever written, practically.
Pretty much. And the models are designed to find patterns in all that data. Relationships, structures, how language works.
And what can they actually do once they've learned those patterns?
Well, according to the source, quite a bit, they can understand prompts in plain English.
So you can talk to them normally.
Yeah. They generate human-like text, they can summarize things, translate, even write computer code.
But the source is careful to say what they aren't, too.
Very careful, and this is critical. The author stresses they don't understand or think like humans do.
They're not conscious.
No. He calls them incredibly powerful pattern matching and generation engines. They can mimic conversation, produce relevant text, because they've seen countless examples.
But it's statistical correlation, not actual comprehension.
Exactly. The source is clear. Their role is to augment human intelligence. They're tools. Powerful tools, but tools nonetheless, to be directed.
And the main tool he uses, his home base for drafting, is Google Gemini.
That's the one. Specifically the Pro subscription, which he notes gives better capabilities. And its multimodal works with more than just text.
Okay. And there's a specific feature of Gemini he highlights as really important for this workflow.
Yes, pinned chats. This sounds like a small detail, but he says it's critical operationally.
Pinned chats, how does that work?
Basically, he dedicates a specific chat thread just for a project, like his Independent Variables newsletter, and he pins it.
And pinning it means?
It means Gemini remembers the entire history of that specific conversation, all the previous prompts, all the AI's responses, everything discussed within that project thread.
Ah, so it's not starting fresh every time you interact.
Exactly. In a normal chat, the AI might forget stuff from earlier. With a pinned chat, the source says it becomes a persistent, evolving dialogue, like a shared knowledge base just for that project.
Wow, okay. That's actually huge. It means the AI has all the context, the background, previous drafts, the terms you use.
Right. It's like having a project notebook you and your assistant constantly refer back to, or like that research assistant who remembers every single thing you've discussed about this topic.
That saves incredible amounts of time not having to re-explain everything.
Totally. It allows ideas to really build and evolve over time within that AI chat. It enables a much deeper collaboration.
And within Gemini, he also uses Imagen for images.
Yeah, briefly mention it's integrated, so he can generate custom images, visual metaphors, right there alongside the text he's drafting. Visual input to match the text output.
Okay, so Gemini is the main hub, but then there's another AI tool he brings in for a specific task, Google Notebook LM.
Right, and this one's different, specialized.
Because it's grounded. You mentioned that earlier.
Exactly. That's Notebook LM's key feature. It's an AI assistant whose responses are strictly limited to the source documents you upload.
So you feed it specific texts.
Yes, and it can summarize, answer questions, generate new text, but only based on the material you gave it. The source really emphasizes this exclusively part.
Okay, so unlike Gemini, which draws on its massive general training,
Notebook LM is deliberately constrained, fenced in, you could say, by the documents you provide.
and why is that useful here?
The source highlights it for tasks needing really high faithfulness to a specific text, like creating that audio overview script directly from the final published article.
So it guarantees the audio summary actually matches the written piece accurately.
Precisely. It stops the AI from bringing in outside info or maybe misinterpreting something based on its broader training. It ensures fidelity, like telling a summarizer, just stick to this book, nothing else.
That distinction is really important. General LLM versus grounded AI. Okay, so inputs recap. Human side idea, experience, unique frameworks like EMI, narrative, instructions, text side Gemini Pro with crucial pin chats, Imagen for visuals, and the grounded Notebook LM for specific tasks. That's the setup.
The raw materials and the toolkit.
Now, how does it all come together? Let's get into the process.
Right, the process. This is where the human direction meets the AI power. It's dynamic, iterative, collaborative. The source breaks it down into phases.
In phase one is the main event, really, article conception and drafting, using Gemini Pro in that pin chat.
It starts with the initial prompt seeding the system. The author writes a detailed prompt in that project's pin chat.
Not just write about X.
No, much more comprehensive. The source says it includes the core topic, the narrative arc he wants, the key arguments, any specific systems thoughts to weave in, like referencing that EMI trinity or the three-tier hierarchy.
So linking it back to his models.
Exactly. And turning those notes to self into clear tasks for Gemini, really setting the stage, giving detailed instructions.
And Gemini takes that prompt, plus all the history from the pin chat.
And acts as a research assistant and first drafter. It processes everything and generates an initial draft.
Where does that draft appear?
The source says it goes onto an integrated Canvas document right within Gemini, and it's described as sophisticated generation of structured text. It tries to follow the narrative, pull in background from the chat. It's more than just finishing sentences.
But that's just the start. The source really emphasizes the next bit, iterative refinement, the human-AI feedback loop.
Absolutely. This is described as the most critical stage, where the real collaboration happens and where human control is strongest.
So the author reads that first draft
Critically.
thoroughly, critically. It's not passive acceptance at all. It's expert review.
And then provides feedback.
Yes, but very targeted feedback. Through a series of further prompts, it becomes this continuous loop.
What kind of prompts does he use?
The source gives examples, things like clarifications and expansions, asking Gemini to explain a point more or simplify it for a general audience.
Makes sense.
Also, tone and voice adjustments, guiding the AI to sound more like his specific editorial style, maybe make this section more reflective or direct.
Adapting the feel of it. Yeah. And structural changes, too. Asking Gemini to reorder paragraphs, maybe beef up the conclusion or improve the flow.
Okay.
And crucially, integration of specific frameworks. Explicitly telling Gemini, make sure this part clearly connects to the EMI trinity, or use the three-tier hierarchy to explain this.
So he's actively making the AI apply his own complex models.
Exactly. It shows the human deeply directing the intellectual content, not just fixing grammar.
It sounds very dynamic, almost like having a conversation with a super responsive co-writer.
The source uses that exact analogy. Much like working with a highly responsive human research assistant or co-writer, the AI generates, the human critiques and directs, the AI refines instantly.
And this back and forth is where the author really shapes the piece.
Yes, where he stamps his authority, his nuance, his specific intellectual viewpoint onto the AI's draft.
And the source is absolutely clear about who's driving the bus here.
Unequivocal. The author states, my agency and editorial judgment are paramount here. The AI proposes and refines, but the human directs and makes final decisions.
So the human has the final say. Always.
Always. The AI provides the speed, the structure based on prompts, the rapid revisions, but the human provides the critical eye, the intellectual rigor, the final polish, the ultimate approval. Human as director, AI as skilled executor.
Got it. So once that intense iteration leads to a final article text, phase 2 is visual storytelling, using Imagen within Gemini.
This part sounds a bit more straightforward. He might open a separate chat just for images,
Okay.
describes the visual metaphor he wants, prompts Imagen, looks at the results, maybe tweaks the prompt, iterates until he gets an image that really complements the article.
So quick custom visuals. Then phase 3, publication to Substack.
Yeah, this is just the mechanics. Copy the final text from the Gemini canvas, grab the chosen image, paste it into Substack. Simple transfer.
But the process isn't over yet. Phase 4 is generating the audio overview, and this is where Notebook LM comes in.
Yes, the specialized, grounded AI, and that grounding is absolutely key here.
How does he set it up?
He takes the published article, the final live version from Substack, and uploads it as a source document into a dedicated Notebook LM notebook.
Ah, the final version specifically.
Yeah, yes. The source stresses this. Crucial step ensures Notebook LM's responses are grounded exclusively in my actual published content.
That sounds like really important quality control.
Yeah.
Make sure the audio genuinely reflects the final written piece.
Exactly. No risk of it summarizing an old draft or pulling in random stuff. It only knows the final article, fidelity guaranteed.
Okay, so the article is uploaded. Then what?
Then the author provides director's notes within Notebook LM. There are features to customize instructions for the AI hosts, the synthetic voices that will read the overview.
So he's directing the AI voices.
Pretty much. He guides how Notebook LM should synthesize the audio from the text.
What kind of guidance?
The source mentions things like the desired story arc for the audio version, key concepts from the article to emphasize, the target audience like general but intelligent, so clear but not dumbed down, and pointing out any specific scientific or philosophical ideas that need careful explanation in audio format. Again, human directing the AI's output for a specific purpose.
And Notebook LM can generate different lengths of audio.
Yeah, the source mentions options like shorter, default, longer, and this is where the efficiency really shines.
How so?
He notes that choosing longer recently gave him discussions over 40 minutes long.
40 minutes.
Yeah.
Generated automatically from the article.
Based on the article and his instructions, yeah.
Yeah.
The source calls it a substantial and nuanced exploration, something that would take ages to script and record manually for every single article.
Wow. That's incredibly efficient. And the output is just an audio file.
A multivoice.wav file, yeah.
Yeah.
Synthesized by Notebook LM based on the text and the director's notes.
Okay, that's phase 4. Phase 5 is the last step, podcast distribution.
Right. He uploads that .wav file from Notebook LM to Substack.
And Substack handles the rest.
Yeah, Substack automatically pushes it out to linked platforms like YouTube Podcasts, Spotify, making the audio version available wherever people listen to podcasts.
So it's a whole pipeline. Human idea, human direction, iterative AI drafting, visuals, publication, then grounded AI audio synthesis, then distribution.
Yeah.
That covers the process.
That's the flow.
Okay, so what are the results, the outputs of this AI augmented system?
Well, the outputs aren't just the files themselves. The source really focuses on the benefits and the new capabilities the system unlocks.
And the most obvious one seems to be accelerated cadence and increased depth.
Absolutely. That's the big, tangible outcome the author highlights first. A dramatic increase in publication frequency.
Because the AI handles the time sinks.
Exactly. Things like initial research synthesis, drafting from a blank page, creating audio, they're significantly compressed so he can publish more often.
But not just faster, also deeper.
That's what he claims, yeah. He says he can explore topics with greater depth more quickly. The AI helps structure and synthesize, freeing him up to focus on the core thinking and the refinement, speed and substance.
Okay, this next output is really interesting. Maintaining authorial voice and style. He says the AI stuff still sounds like me.
Yeah, this is huge, right? It's often the biggest fear for creators using AI losing their unique voice.
So how does he think he avoided that? The source gives reasons.
It does. Two main ones. First, implicit training.
Implicit, meaning?
Meaning the AI learned his style just through interaction, all that back and forth with Gemini over the past year. But more importantly, Notebook LM was grounded in, get this, over 100 of his previous manually written pieces.
Wow, over 100 articles fed into it.
Yeah. So Notebook LM implicitly absorbed his writing patterns, his vocabulary, his sentence structures, his typical ways of explaining things.
It's like the AI did a PhD in his writing style.
Kind of. It's soaked up his voice.
Mm-hmm.
But second, there's also explicit guidance.
The ongoing direction.
Exactly. All those iterative prompts, the tone adjustments, the detailed director's notes for the audio. He's constantly actively steering the AI in real time to match his voice and intent for that specific piece.
So it's a combo. The AI learns from his past work, and he coaches it constantly in the present.
That seems to be the key. And the result, he observes, is that the AI gets really good at mimicking his writing style, my mode of explanation, and even my tendency to weave in specific philosophical or systems thinking frameworks, those unique EMI Trinity type things.
So it sounds authentic, but it's produced way faster.
That's the claim, his voice, amplified.
Another big output, multi-format content and expanded reach.
Right, because the system efficiently creates the written article with images and that detailed audio overview.
He can reach more people.
Exactly. People who prefer reading, people who prefer listening. It makes it easy to cater to both and distribute across Substack, YouTube, Spotify, wider reach, more potential impact.
And the source looks ahead a bit, too, with personalized AI voices.
Yeah, he anticipates tools like Notebook LM soon being able to use an AI-cloned version of his own voice for the audio.
Whoa, so the audio wouldn't just be generic AI voices reading his text.
It would actually sound like him speaking the words the AI synthesized.
That's slightly mind-bending.
It is. And he gives this example, calling it an almost unimaginable leap. He pictures maybe dictating rough thoughts into his phone while he's out fishing, and having this AI system automatically turn those voice notes into a polished article and a podcast episode that sounds exactly like him.
That's incredible scale for one person. The potential productivity is staggering.
Right. It paints this picture of individuals being able to share complex ideas from anywhere, in multiple formats, retaining their unique voice, amplified massively by AI.
Okay, so outputs. More speed, more depth, authentic voice, multi-format reach, and a glimpse of hyper-personalized AI voice cloning. Let's pull back now and use that systems thinking framework again to reflect on all this.
Yes, this helps tie it all together conceptually, understanding why it works.
He calls the whole workflow an open adaptive system. Let's break that down.
Okay, so we have the core components: inputs, ideas, tools, process collaboration, outputs, content, speed, voice.
Right.
Systems thinking adds that crucial fourth element: feedback.
Feedback. From where?
It can be external reader comments, listener reactions, but also internal, the author evaluating the AI's performance. Did it get the nuance right? Did it follow the prompt well?
And that evaluation feeds back into the system.
Exactly. It informs his future prompts, his strategies. It helps him refine the process. That's the feedback loop, making the system learn and improve.
And why open?
Because it's not closed off. It takes in new inputs all the time, new ideas from the author, maybe new research, and potentially new AI tools or features as they become available.
Adaptive.
Because it changes. The author adapts his methods based on experience and feedback. The AI models themselves adapt and evolve through training and interaction. It's not static, it's dynamic.
The source also points to the AI tools as being a powerful leverage point in this system.
Yeah, this is a key systems thinking concept. A leverage point is somewhere a small change can create a big effect.
Like a lever multiplying force.
Exactly that analogy. The source argues that using tools like Gemini and Notebook LM here is a massive leverage point.
How does that play out?
Because, as he describes it, small inputs of human direction, a detailed prompt, a quick refinement, those director's notes can result in large outputs of drafted content or synthesized audio.
So a little bit of focused human effort gets amplified hugely by the AI.
Right. The AI provides the raw power and speed, amplifying the high-value human input, the idea, the direction, the judgment.
It drastically boosts the system's overall efficiency, its throughput.
That's the idea. The human does the critical thinking, the AI accelerates the transformation of that thinking into shareable content.
Which brings us back to maybe the most important point the source makes, through that systems thinking lens. Human agency remains central.
This really seems to be the core message. Despite all the AI power, the source insists human intentionality, critical judgment, and editorial control are the indispensable drivers.
The AI is a co-pilot, not the pilot.
Exactly. It's an amplifier, an accelerator. It executes, it follows instructions based on patterns it learned, but the vision, the core thinking, the ethics, the final sign-off, That's all human.
And this connects to that broader idea mentioned in his work, Education as Agency.
It feels like it does, yeah. This whole process embodies that idea. It's about consciously learning how these tools work as part of a system and then using them purposefully to achieve your goals.
Rather than just letting the tech dictate things.
Right. Maintaining human control, human direction, actively wielding the tools.
And finally, systems thinking also highlights the interconnectedness of it all.
Yeah, it's not just about mastering one tool in isolation. It's about how Gemini for drafting, Imagen for visuals, Notebook LM for audio, how they link together.
And how the human steps connect to the AI steps.
Exactly, forming this integrated and more powerful content generation pipeline. The output of one stage feeds the next, a seamless flow from spark to distribution.
So systems thinking isn't just descriptive. It helps understand the dynamics, the leverage, and crucially, the enduring importance of the human guiding it all. Okay, let's wrap with the author's own conclusion from the source, his final reflections.
He basically sums it up as this journey of discovery, right? Finding ways to get this significant productivity enhancement by really thoughtfully integrating AI as a collaborator.
And hammering home that core message again. It's not AI replacing humans.
But AI amplifying human thought and creativity. That's the key takeaway.
And his vision is about, what was the phrase? Structuring a new kind of creative system.
Where human insight directs artificial power.
Yeah. It's about intentional design.
Yeah.
Using the tech to serve human goals.
And looking ahead, he's optimistic.
Very. He thinks as the tools get even better, the potential for individuals to research, synthesize, communicate complex ideas, it's just going to keep growing. But the key, tying back to systems thinking,
Is understanding the system. Understand the parts, how they interact, and then guiding it all with clear purpose and critical agency. Be the informed director.
So the future for independent creators working in partnership with AI, he thinks it looks remarkably bright.
It's a powerful vision, isn't it? Individuals leveraging this tech to share their unique knowledge much more widely and effectively.
Definitely reshapes the possibilities for one person's impact.
For sure.
Okay, so that was our deep dive into the source, the AI Copilot. We've really dissected this practical example of an AI-augmented workflow. We looked at the crucial mix of human and AI inputs.
Walk through that iterative process with tools like Gemini, those vital pinned chats, and the grounded Notebook LM.
Examine the outputs more speed, more depth, keeping that authentic voice reaching more people.
And use systems thinking as our lens to see the AI as a leverage point, but with human agency firmly in the driver's seat.
And understanding these kinds of workflows, well, it matters to you, the listener, because this is how knowledge is increasingly being created and shared, faster in more formats.
Yeah, it shows how individuals can potentially use these tools to seriously amplify their own capabilities. And it highlights how frameworks like systems thinking aren't just abstract ideas, they're practical ways to make sense of complex, changing processes. They help you see the connections and where your critical judgment matters most.
So here's a final thought to maybe chew on. As these AI co-pilots get even better, mimicking our voices, amplifying our output like crazy, how does that start to change our whole idea of authorship?
Good question.
What new questions does it raise about the sheer scale one person might achieve? And maybe most importantly, what does this evolving human-AI partnership really tell us about the unique, maybe irreplaceable value of actual human insight, human judgment, and human purpose guiding all this incredible artificial power?
Definitely a lot to think about as this all continues to unfold.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the source material. We hope it's given you a clearer picture of what the future of creation with AI copilots might look like.